Okay, thank you, everyone. Good day, and firstly, we hope you're doing well these strange days. Thank you for joining us today for this very last, but certainly not less interesting session during this Funding Continuity Day. And welcome to this event session called Cybersecurity for Teleworking, where you will find more about new cybersafe habits that we need to embrace in these times when we still mostly work from home, and that will allow us to enjoy the benefits of new work routines while preserving, of course, our organizations and private security levels. Our speaker today is Aljoša Pašić, Technology Transfer Director in Atos Research and Innovation. He's an active contributor in more than 70 international research and innovation projects in the area of information security. He works in several EU projects. Two recent ones are addressed in the Horizon 2020, also cybersecurity cell establishing and operating a pilot for a European cybersecurity competence network, and the other one developing a common European cybersecurity research and innovation roadmap. Once again, thank you very much for joining the session. If you have any questions during or after, please feel free to raise them in the YouTube chat, and Aljoša and me will get back to them at the end of the session. And Aljoša, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Nina, for introduction. And just let me know if you can see my screen now.
Yes, I can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, so we can start. Thank you, everybody. I think I will try to keep it. It's not an easy topic for the afternoon, but I will try to keep it interesting. And I'm sure that you already heard many things about cybersecurity dangers in teleworking and how everything changed. So I will take a slightly maybe different look and try to make it as interesting as possible. This is something, I start with this. This is something that I found only yesterday on one of the Google's websites. It's about their prediction about COVID and post-COVID use of teleworking. So you can see it's based on Google internal data, and you can see that the peak in teleworking, but also after their prediction after this peak, that the projection of teleworking will remain significantly higher than what would have been originally without COVID. So it's not only teleworking during these lockdown times, but also it's after the COVID and after what is called new normality. The problem with, as I said, I will in this presentation I will take risk-based approach. So I will use many terms from the risk management and risk assessment. And the main problems with risk in digital environment is that we are very bad at assessing and managing risk in digital environment. We are, as humans, we are very bad in managing and assessing risk in general. We are good maybe assessing risk when we cross the street because we have a traffic light, we know to look left, right, and we are reasonably good in washing our hands as they repeatedly said that we have to do it in these COVID times. But when we are in digital environment, we suddenly stop to be reasonable and we are using weak passwords. We are doing things which normally in physical world we wouldn't be doing. So the risk assessment, I think it's a basic ingredient. It will be in this presentation kind of leitmotiv, what makes teleworking different and what changes in our environment. So in establishing risk, there are it's quite easy. Formula is very easy. There are only two factors apparently. Seems very simple. So likelihood of an event and consequence of an event. So in the likelihood of an event, it is again different combination of chances that threat agents will explore vulnerabilities. The cybersecurity specialists, they know more about vulnerabilities and they know more about threat agents and possible threats. But we all, as the users, we have to be aware at least of basic vulnerabilities and basic threats. And also, of course, of consequences, impact on our assets. There are several possible situations. Here you have a risk quantified in 5 levels, but basically it's there is a very low impact. Maybe you on your laptop don't have any data. This is more common, that you keep data stored in cloud, or you don't have anything which is sensitive. So you think, anyway, I don't have my assets are not so important. I don't use laptop for anything sensitive, so the risk is very low. Even the probability is high because I don't have regular patch of antivirus or other security mitigation mechanisms. The second situation is, of course, that you have not only low impact, the low value of assets. You don't have anything on your laptop or home computer, home server, and there is also low probability, which is we will see later is not the case. Definitely not the case. And you can have situation that you say, okay, there is a high impact. I have a lot of valuable information, but the probability is low. Again, not the case. Not the case. I will explain later why is this the risk likelihood increases with the teleworking. The most likely you're in the final situation when you have a high probability and a high impact. So there is always something on your computer. Maybe you used it for your private banking purposes, and it's more and more common to use this combination of bring your own device, as it's known paradigm, to use it for double purpose. Also, quite recently, I think last week, ENISA is European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. It's based in Heraklion and in Greece, and it is issued a threat landscape mapping for teleworking. So it is nothing new. Again, there are many webinars in this during these last 3-4 months. There is quite a reasonable amount of work repeatedly enumerating all the different attack vectors, all the threats, which are most of them are not new. But what is new, what is changes is the threat, the characteristic of threat agents and characteristics of vulnerability. What is also new, even this is a comparison now with I do with the car and traffic infrastructure. So you say, okay, my laptop is the same one, or the computer is the same that I used before teleworking. I have a number of mitigation mechanisms in place. This is the same antivirus, it's the same access control that I used before. So nothing should be changed. It's not true. The road is not the same. So in teleworking, the road to your server, to corporate data, to the what we call shadow IT, to the different cloud services, it's not the same. So there are many more obstacles. There are bumps. There are the curves, which are not, you cannot drive with the same speed. So the infrastructure is different, and there are many more possibilities and attack vectors, attack surface, which is increased. Besides, some of these mitigation measures, some of these mechanisms, maybe they are in place, but they are not up to date. So usually, especially in big companies, there is somebody taking care of it. Sometimes it's automated, but this is not necessarily the case when you work from home. Main challenges. So this slide is grouping these challenges for teleworking in four areas. Protect your devices. to secure access to all applications on your remote equipment. Remote access to sensitive data. This is for users that need access to remote access to corporate servers. Shadow IT is also the name that we use for when employees are using the systems to access the other non-corporate applications such as Gmail or I don't know, the Dropbox, WhatsApp, etc. So here, as I said, there are several things which change. Basically, the attack surface is changed. So we have new opportunities. When I spoke about risk, I spoke about new threats, new threat agents. Actually, there are not so many new threats and new threat agents. There are many new opportunities for them, for the existing. So we have the same threats, same threat agents that have skills, probably the same skills, probably the same capacity, and motivation remains for them also the same. But what is changed is the opportunity due to this attack surface, which is now bigger. This includes the possibilities that user saves files locally instead of on corporate servers. They use sometimes unencrypted transfer. Maybe in a company environment, there is encryption by default enabled. The use of VPN. Some companies set up a virtual private network very in a rush and it's not properly configured. I already mentioned Shadow IT. The use for the private purposes of the equipment. In general, there is a bigger complexity, which is always enemy of security, and it's doing things differently. This situation of chaos and rush, and we are all kind of confused because we have to do many things in parallel from home, and this is, as I said, increasing opportunity. At the same time, the vulnerability characteristics are also different. What are the characteristics of vulnerabilities? The ease of discovery. So it's because your laptop or computer is not behind the firewall, corporate firewall, it's easier to discover vulnerabilities if they exist on your computer. It's easier to exploit them. The ease of exploitation is also another characteristics for the vulnerabilities. And it's more difficult to detect attack on your laptop because if the collection of events, normally the corporate detection, monitoring and detection environments like CM security information and event management, they collect events only inside of the corporate environment, and it's more difficult to monitor and detect endpoints which are outside of this environment. Okay, going back to the risks. So we have, there is a guy who is very popular, Donald Rumsfeld. He was U.S. Secretary of Defense, I think, something like this. But anyway, he remained, entered the history as a guy who said that we have known knowns, unknown knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. I don't even remember the context where he said this, but this is now remained as a Rumsfeld theory. And applied to the risk, we have in this area of known knowns, there are risks that we are aware and we understand, we know how to deal with them. These are things that phishing mail that comes and says, okay, open me. Most of us, 99%, know how to recognize and how to deal with these phishing mails. There are things that we understand, but we are not aware of. This is in teleworking situation. It can happen regularly, so we understand that there could be some vulnerability. We understand the threat, but we are not aware because we cannot detect. We don't have this possibility. The things that we are aware of, but we don't understand. Here I can give example of the things which I notice. I'm aware that something strange is happening. I see in memory consumption, for example, CPU usage of CPU, that something strange is happening. It could be some I don't know, some malware or some mining for Bitcoins application, something. It's just that I don't have time to normally incorporate environment. There is somebody that already understands this, know how to deal, and I cannot, I don't have a time to understand it. I don't have time to model or to apply the mitigation measure. And finally, there are things that we are not neither aware nor understand. This is the most dangerous ones, of course, but this is always problem even in corporate environment. This is the zero-day vulnerabilities and things like the predict future attacks. These are a couple of ideas for the research into these areas. So typical, for example, for the last one, the high impact, low frequency events, application of artificial intelligence and things like that. These are topics. Let's look another way to deal with this. Risk assessment crossing the street. You need continuous assessment. You're looking left and right, but it gets really complicated. Like when you get more crossing points, and this is what I mentioned previously when I said that the attack surface is bigger and there is a certain chaos because you're doing things differently. You have to watch in more directions, not only left and right. You're more vulnerable. It's not that we are blind, completely blind, or that we are helpless. Some of us know reasonably or aware of reasonably of threats, but they're much more vulnerable than in corporate. I feel at least much more vulnerable than in corporate environment when there are mitigation, security mitigation is in place. And finally, distraction. Distraction is probably the biggest problem. It's not only about social engineering attacks. It's also that we are in a rush because your children are asking and shouting or crying, and we need to do other things. And then in this rush or distraction, we just do things and accept and maybe say yes to things that normally we would evaluate before clicking. Risk versus investment. So this is a typical function of risk. What is important is to ask yourself, how much is at risk? This is related to the first transparency, one of the first transparency that I had. What do I have? What is the asset? Is it data? Is it computer? Probably it's these days computer is not so much expensive as it could be the loss of the work if you or sensitive information that you have on your computer. Do the risk increase as I spend more or less time and more or less money on this issue, on risk, on reducing risk? Not necessarily. So not every minute, every euro that you spend on security is meaning that you are getting better in risk management. As you see in here, the point is to find effective risk management strategy, which is not to spend too much and still to have some risk. You will always have remaining risk, but to have this to allow yourselves, for example, to be able to visit, to do the business as normal, and not to invest, to find the optimal investment, let's say. A lot of things these days you can find the best practices, the guidelines. There are a couple of these lists here, and NISA I already mentioned. It's European Network Information Security Agency. Europol, INCIBE is a Spanish Institute for Cybersecurity. So they also published teleworking guidelines. CNIL in France is the agency, for example, for data protection and privacy. So more or less every member state and even at European level, every institution published these guidelines and best practices for teleworking. What I wanted to mention is the possibility to create, in the scope of NGI, I think it's very important to create human-centric training and awareness about, because I think this is one of the gaps. There are a lot of these guidelines and best practices, but there are not so many hands-on experiences, cyber ranges, simulations where let's say the non-specialist users can practice, can find themselves in situations which are realistic, yet they are not just a written piece of paper which gives them guidelines. So I think anything in this direction would be also useful in the future, and even the award points are certificated and badges. I'm sure that in the future we will have something like we have a driving license for the driving vehicles on the road. We will also have some kind of basic security, cybersecurity certificate in order to be able to navigate safely, at least in some environments in critical infrastructures or similar. Example of European project, CyberWiser. It's an example of the project that is trying to automate risk assessment. And when I say automate, not only the parts of the management previous to the deployment of security measures, mitigation measures, but also continuously to have continuous evaluation of the risk. So when the measure is applied, to detect how the risk is behaving and how this is calculated for a specific company, for a specific environment. In order to do this, you have to collect indicators of the risk. So one of the indicators is obviously related to business configuration. I mentioned that everybody knows what are his or her own assets, what is the impact, what are the consequences, what is the configuration on the business, impact on the business. So I think this is more quantitative kind of indicators. Vulnerability test. This is these days it is normal practice to run these vulnerability tests, but what is not so normal is to trigger this vulnerability and pen testing automatically when something is changed. So when there is a small changes in configuration, to trigger again the automated testing. Network monitoring. I said previously that we have on corporate level, we have usually security, several layers of monitoring. One is security information event management. Another one could be intrusion detection monitoring. There are different sensors and different layers where we can obtain events, which gives us idea of normal or abnormal behavior. And finally, application monitoring indicators, similar to the previous. Again, we can deploy sensors in a specific layer of application layer that give indication about the possible attack or abnormal application on the abnormal events. The problem with teleworking is to obtain these indicators. So again, this is all the project is working when they are deployed in the environment where you can obtain this in real time. Challenges what they do when the configuration changes. More European projects. Now I will talk a little bit about what Nina mentioned in the introduction.
Sorry, I just
yes?
we're having some echo over there now, out of nowhere. Maybe you open another window or something. Just
No.
Okay, no. Sorry. Then maybe the network, the connection. Okay, maybe you can proceed. Sorry. Okay, it's okay now.
It's okay. Maybe it was temporary. For projects that I mentioned, well, actually, you mentioned, Nina, the cybersecurity competence center and cybersecurity competence network. These are initiatives launched by European Commission. Actually, it's one initiative. It's just it has 3 layers, and these 3 layers are called Center of Excellence, Network of Excellence, and Community of Excellence. And it's not established yet. There is a regulation that is the communication of European Commission that is going to be established very soon, and it's just in process of negotiation. The Center of Excellence will be one for Europe. Network of Excellence will be network of national, let's call them contact points, or institutions for cybersecurity. And then the third layer would be a cybersecurity competence community. And here we have 4 projects: Concordia, Eco Cybersecurity for Europe, and Sparta, which in totally they have, as you see, more than 160 participants, and I think all EU member states are involved. And they are together, these 4 projects are forming this new community that is going to play a big role in the next framework program. This slide is from the European Commission, from one of the recent presentations. And its schedule is sketches the responsibilities of these 3 layers. European Competence Center. This is a new agency to be founded probably this year, later this year. Network of National Coordination Centers. In each country is already more or less known which organizations will play this role. There will be 1 per country, 1 per member states. And then competence community, a large, open, diverse group of stakeholders, research, but not only research, not exclusively, from civilian and defense sectors. What is more important, I think, for the participant in this webinar or for audience is that the totality of the funding of Digital Europe program will be managed through this new competence center network and community. And part of the Horizon Europe next framework program will be also managed by this cybersecurity competence center and network and community. What does it mean? That this is not this is still in negotiation. The work plan and for both programs, for Digital Europe and Horizon Europe, is still, I think, not finalized. But what is clear that it is all organizations that want in the future to apply to some of these programs should be in a part of the community. So I think the European Commission is doing now pilot with these 4 projects, participants of 4 projects, but it soon will be opening for other organizations to join if they have competence in cybersecurity. Okay, conclusions. I think I'm a little bit ahead of time, but it's good because we will have more time for questions and answers. So, teleworkers, I think they're increasingly aware about cybersecurity. There was really a lot of, through all channels, there was a lot of talking about risks and guidelines and best practices. Good thing is also that risk management is now well understood. This is a good starting point because it's everybody more or less understands risk management from the physical life. So the problem is to translate the concepts and awareness to the digital life. Bad things is that challenges multiply very fast. It's very dynamic. The threats are very dynamic. There are new vulnerabilities discovered every day. So the solution adoption is slower when you telework than what it is in corporate IT. What does it mean typically when there is from the time of discovering a new vulnerability, for example, this window of opportunity for the threat agent is bigger, and in teleworking the patching is not so quick and continuous like it is in corporate environment. The ugly thing is that we might need more complexity, to introduce more complexity in combating these challenges. So meaning, among the other things, meaning artificial intelligence, automation of security solutions, orchestration of responses, etc. So, as I said previously, more complexity brings potentially new vulnerabilities. So this is never-ending game. The ugly thing about security. And this is, I think, all from my side.
Thank you very much. Very interesting talk. I like this topic a lot personally. And I have, we don't really have questions, but I have a question actually. You already mentioned that there are many cybersecurity policies written, but there are super little hands-on experiences. And I was wondering here, shouldn't government agencies do something about it too? If not before, then certainly now when we all work from home due to the pandemic, some short to-do list for the companies and for the workers. I think it should be more on the even state level, not just the companies level.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think they should do it, and I think in some countries there, for example, in UK there is a thing called Cyber Essentials. So basically, even if you're SMEs or a startup, there are things that you as a startup or SME have to have in place, essential measures, essential security measures, which are not obligatory, but you will have problems to get credits, and in many places it's becoming, especially if your SME or startup depends on digital infrastructures. This should be obligatory to have these cyber essentials in place.
Yeah.
So maybe not for individuals, for the freelancers, but definitely for if you have business which is like e-commerce or something which is depending completely on
the organization. Yeah. Okay, there's a question, and Hilal saying, Agasha, good afternoon. I think this presentation made me much more aware of the risk, really like the crossing street in real life vs not caring when being an online analogy. And there's a question, there are many things we can do to protect ourselves, but what would be your number one easy tip for us individuals, if you have any?
Good question. I would say the air gap. I would buy another laptop, buy another computer. Don't use one computer for everything. So the computers these days are cheap. So these are, I mean, relatively cheap. You can buy for a second-hand computer if you want to look something which is, I don't know, the download some music, or not even illegal, something which is not 100% secure environment. So why not to create the air gap and to use different computers for different purposes?
Okay, makes sense, kind of. And yeah, that was kind of my question too. If you have like a list of maybe not buying a computer, but maybe some tools. I don't know, top 3 tools that are cheap and or even free that then we can use to protect our data and our laptops, our documents.
The problems are obviously antivirus is these days should be obligatory. But the problem is not so much in having even if you have the best of antivirus, if you don't update it regularly, if you don't have the patching, regular patching, it's not sufficient. Yeah, it's difficult, but the one thing which is maybe now I will say something which is maybe a little bit more controversial, which is use of cloud-based security services. There are companies which are experts and which provide security from the cloud. So at the end, it's always better to rely on experts. So I guess that it's controversial because you somehow give a part of control to somebody else, to a company that is that have insight of might have insight in your data or what is happening if you're making automated backups or give them access control to collect events from your laptop log files. You're kind of giving a little bit of control, similar to when you have the outsource the video surveillance of your house. You give it to so you're giving them a little bit of your privacy. But it's a trade-off, so it's a little bit controversial, but it's a trade-off that everybody has to consider.
Yeah, thank you. There's one more question: is Windows Defender enough, or should we invest in something better? if exists something better for the PC.
Again, it depends. What do you have on your laptop?
Yeah, of course.
What do you use your laptop for? What do you have? If you don't have too much confidential information or sensitive information, yes, it's of course you don't need much more. If you have something which is very valuable, then you would need definitely more things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And no more questions? Any more questions? Antivirus suggestions? No? Okay, guess that will be it then. I would say. Any last conclusion? If any, if not, it's fine.
Yeah, maybe if I can finish, I mentioned once because NGI has at its heart, next generation internet has. I know that many participants are from NGI community, and NGI has a lot of human-centric values. There are also most of the threats are human-centric threats. So I mentioned social engineering as one of the biggest threats. And what I did not mention is probably the increase of this kind of attacks when somebody calls you, and we are by nature we are confident when somebody calls over the phone and asks, "Okay, I'm calling you from I'm an administrator, system administrator," and things like this kind of social engineering attacks is increased also with teleworking, and this is one of the things that people. Maybe are not aware, and they answer they just give the password or some sensitive data through the phone call.
Yeah, danger. we are feeling pretty comfortable with picking up and talking with those when someone presents ourselves.
Yeah. We are always talking, about only digital channels and digital attacks, but a lot of
yeah, correct. Yeah, more physical. Yeah. Okay. If no more questions, I would like you to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Alyosha, for this opportunity. It's a very interesting, endless topic. I think we can talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. This will be posted, and if you want, you can join the NGI community, which Alyosha is an ambassador himself, and we can follow up the talk over there always, whenever you like. We will post the link. And thank you very much. Keep your data safe and stay safe. And that's it from my side. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.